So, in this week's podcast, Prem and I plan to discuss something very important when it comes to advertising management and optimizing for performance, which is bids. We know that bids are a core component of the ads management. How you optimize your bids strongly dictates how your campaigns or overall account is going to perform. And then also, it's one of the key strategies. Every time we share a case study or a win, bids is one of the key strategies that we implemented. And then they also represent a major chunk of the PPC activities that we do on a regular basis. So, Prem and I, this week, we drill down to the nitty gritty of the bid management and discuss some of the important points when it comes to managing the bids. So, to begin with, Prem, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, Himanshu?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's a pretty good week.
Yeah, and coming to a number, how much to increase and how much to decrease, I think it's really a tough number to come.
Yeah, that's true. Like, because there are so many different aspects to when we need to consider when we are setting up the bids for the first time or when we are making increases or decreases. I think you we were discussing earlier about the suggested bid, and that could be a good starting point here. So, Prem, maybe you want to talk about the suggested bid piece and how we were discussing the other day, how the suggested bid could be a trap as well.
Yeah, suggested bids, I think, are in earlier days, in last year or even before that, it was working, and Amazon was giving a pretty good historical, based on the historical data. The suggested bids were pretty good on the point, but I don't find that accuracy in coming to Q1 2024 and whatever we have seen in last quarter and even in this quarter. uh, I will start with SP campaigns. If you see, generally where the CPCs are close to $2 or $3, Amazon is directly suggesting suggested bids as like $7 or $8. And when you move towards SB, it's like pretty bad for beauty categories. If you enter into beauty categories, like suggested bids for SB campaigns are really higher than the CPCs, and it's closer to $20 and $38. So whatever we are seeing in currently in US market and UK and all, I think it's pretty in it's pretty good range currently. But in US, suggested I'm sorry, in US I'm not using the suggested bids anymore, and I'm trying to drill down to the historical data and number of orders, clicks, and everything. So trying to just come up with a good a number. Earlier we were using the suggested bits, but now it's not the case.
Yeah, I am totally aligned here because what I've also noticed and I talked about some time back is like when you set up a new campaign, if you select the same target, that's what I observed. Selecting the same target, it showed a very high suggested bid on that new campaign, and the other existing campaign had a different bid suggestion.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things, like suggested bid may not be accurate. And then also, like when you are making changes to the bids, suggested bid might say that you are already on the high side of this
Yeah.
bids, but then when we increase them further above the suggested highest suggested, we still manage to get more sales and higher CPCs. So definitely, I think it's just a rough idea, but eventually it's you decided based on like various different points, like you said, that historic performance, number of orders, and all of that. So maybe let's drill down a bit further to those key things that we should be looking at. I think
Yep.
one of the things is historic performance.
Yes, I think before that, if you remember, there was a new Amazon feature for once you during the campaign creation, once you add the keywords, Amazon used to give one-liners for all the keywords based on the bids. Whether this historical data, according to this historical data, your bids are low. According to historical data, your bids on the point. So that feature was available on in the few US accounts, but I think Amazon rolled that back again. And currently, if you see in, you will not find that in any of the accounts. So there is something, I think Amazon is changing the algorithm for suggested bids. And uh, I think in 2024 Q1 only we have seen that also. So there is something going on with Amazon with the suggested bids.
Yeah.
Yes, and coming down to the point where how much to increase or decrease. Currently, if you see general as a optimizer, and it's a pretty dynamic process. I generally prefer to increase or decrease in a range of like 10 to 20%. So minimum at least 10 to 20% is my range. So, and that is also based on the data, the historical, how they are suggesting like CPCs, how it's trending. And I always prefer to counter the CPC. I always prefer the product targetings or keywords to be in line with the CPC, or don't go below the CPCs. So I my preferable range is 10 to 20%. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's good. Again, if we talk about like the frequency, the way I like to make changes to the bits is on a regular basis, like every 3 to 5 days making the changes. So every week I'm making some major changes, then I can go up to 20% as well, but then within the week as a second attempt, I'm making some minor changes as well, which could be much lesser than that too.
Yes.
But we'll talk more about that when we talk about the frequency. But yes, like you said, I think historic performance could have been a really important metric. And then also, like when we are making changes on a bid, let's say this week, I think it's also important to not look at just a week before's performance. It could just be a momentary shift in trend. It could just be an anomaly last week. So I think it's important to also look at different windows of the time frames. Let's say last week, last 14 days, and up to last 30 days as well,
Yes,
especially when you're
minimum
planning to.
anybody should at least look for the last 15 days. That is minimum. No,
Yeah.
just judging based on like 1 days or 2 days or even a week is also a vague, I think, of change. So minimum at least should be there 15 days and 30 days, 15 and 30 days. I think that will be the ideal thing.
Yep, yep, that's right. And then the number of orders as well, like especially when you are increasing the bid, you're like, okay, last week I was bidding this much on this product. I got one order and the ACOS is really very low, let's say just 2% or 4%. So I think when I see the number of orders to be low, just one order, then I'm mindful of how much I'm increasing the bid. I don't drastically increase, but rather go gradually. And then eventually, if I continue to see the similar progress, then I just keep on increasing, because with just one order, a specific targeting hasn't really proved itself much.
Yeah.
How about the number of clicks, Prem?
Yep, I think clicks also, and I refer impressions also. Suppose some keyword is like really new and it started generating impressions and it doesn't have any click. So I'll give that chance also to that particular keyword just to increase little bit like 10% and in a day. And then in 1 day or 24 hours, I will observe for that for 24 hours. And then again next day I'll increase with the 10% more, just to give the a chance to every product targeting or keywords to generate the clicks and all. So that is also really important to look at impression and clicks. Until unless you get clicks, there will be no order. So you have to work from that a flow like impression, clicks, and then try for the order and all.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And in this also something we all consider is clicks to sales conversion rate.
Yes.
So how many clicks does it take to get that one order? And based on that, I think we decide the CPC,
Yep.
and then that again becomes another metric to look or consider when we are deciding on the bids. Now coming to the next point, which is about how often should we optimize the bids?
For me again
Yeah,
the range is it's between 3 to 5 days, or in few depends on the accounts also. In few accounts I prefer a week gap, because the accounts which are more settled and I'm trying to build legacy campaigns there. Legacy campaigns in when you start building through that, I think you need to give some time to campaigns. I know there are so many tools and everything who increases the bids or decreases or the bid optimization in a day like 50 to 100 times. I have seen that, but I don't think that's a very good strategy. So for
yeah.
me the ideal situation will be 3 to 5 days, and maximum 7 days.
Yeah, and I think we all agree on this because we have run some tests as well where we
Yeah.
noticed that
Yes.
the frequency beyond like twice a week doesn't really help the campaigns because we are not learning, we are not gathering enough data to make change. We also need to consider that there is an attribution window of 7 to 14 days, and if we are just making changes every day, then we are not learning anything from those campaigns. We are just keep on making changes and not getting really actionable data from that. So
Exactly, exactly. If
yeah,
you these days, if you see when you launch a campaign, suppose SP or any ad type, once you launch a campaign, it takes 48 hours just to generate impression,
yeah,
and you are changing the bids daily. That doesn't help. Suppose
yeah,
you have launched a new campaign. Just if you want to generate impressions, just start with a higher bid. Just start with a higher bid and take it from there. But doing the bid changes daily, that will not help at all.
yeah, yeah. um On to this, I think one other aspect is the days, like which day you are making the adjustment. So firstly, I think you make a good point, Prem, about making those changes every 7 days, because increasing the duration more than 7 days is also not good. So
Yes.
one extreme is the daily, which is not very helpful, and the other extreme is making changes beyond 7 days. We know how much things change within 7 days, so I think every 7 days is important. And
Yes.
then what I've also seen working very well is sticking to the same day for making those changes. Like if you make changes every Thursday, then you stick to that routine, and if you make changes every Monday, then you stick to that routine, unless you are trying and testing and seeing, basically
No,
taking the data.
I think days wise, generally, I don't prefer that much to make changes on weekends, on Saturday and Sunday. But apart from that, I prefer even Fridays also, just to drill down a little
Yeah,
bit on during the weekends, because we have a few accounts, we have seen the day wise performance, the weekends are not good for them. So those
yeah,
kind of accounts, and we have accounts where the performance is very good on weekends, where we are
yeah,
running sponsored TV also. The TV conversion is really high on weekends
yeah,
because
yeah,
of the everybody is watching Prime Video and all.
yeah, yeah, totally.
So
So
yeah.
basically which day, like it depends on like how which day performs how much. Like there is this one account where on during the weekends the search volume goes significantly up, and therefore like good performing targets, they start generating more sales during the weekend, but then also low performers, they start getting more clicks and this wasted spend goes up. So Friday, for example, for such accounts is the day when we are making adjustments to drop the bits, so on the low performers, so that doesn't really like amplify during the weekend, and then also slightly push the top performers or good performers, so they get that exposure during the weekend. So
Yes.
yeah, again, data is really important, and then it varies from account to account which day
Exactly, and
you're
I
making
think
adjustments.
identifying your days is also important. So these days we have like multiple reports. We recently saw hourly report, what it can do. So
Yeah,
if you as an advertiser, if you're thinking to decide which days are doing well and which is not, and so it's very good to, you can download the a report for a week, and you can just apply few macros and all, and you can find out what days performance looks like, for what is the Monday's performance and Tuesdays and all. So like, it's
yeah,
it's really good. The data and everything is really good there.
yeah, yeah, that's right. And coming to the next point about the bidding, the manual bidding and the automatic bidding, I think that's one of the key things that we
Yeah.
have, whenever we discuss about it. So I think there have been some features that Amazon has launched, like cost control and the ROAS based bidding.
Yes, ROAS based bidding is the older one, and then cost control is the recent, only for responsive display. And I think cost control, we are currently experimenting in multiple accounts, and uh, saying anything will not be. I don't think we have that data as of now to judge the cost control feature. But I think in upcoming weeks we'll definitely do a separate podcast for this.
Yeah, that's right. But what I've observed, like in the last 3 weeks of trying and testing, and ROAS based bidding is something we tried last year as well.
Yes, yes.
So I think ROAS bait didn't really, you know,
Yeah, it didn't
meet
help.
our expectations when we believe that it could do a good job in maintaining. But what we are observing with cost control is it's kind of maintaining that stability when it comes to the A cost, for example.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Even I was I wanted to add here. I think the ACOS of cost control campaigns are really good. It's in controllable.
but then I'm also observing that they are not scalable. Like at some point you really miss the control on the bits, but you can't do that with the cost control. And I was doing this analysis of a sponsored display campaign being managed manually and the sponsored display with cost control. And what I found is the manual one could actually be really scaled up, and we could, by regularly optimizing the bits, we could make it better in terms of ROI and in terms of sales. So I think initial results do point to the more effectiveness of the manual management. But then again,
Yes.
yes, when we sit down and
Yes,
gather the
exactly.
data
So
for longer weeks and then we discuss, and I think we it might be a different story. But yeah, that would be another interesting
so
analysis to do.
yes, currently in this all features, I can say that manual bidding is better comparing to all whatever we have seen,
Yeah.
and I'm using manual bidding only, and automated bidding is there. We are experimenting with that. Suppose cost control and everything. Once we do the deep analysis, and then we can make I think judgment based on that.
Yeah. And now coming to the final bit, which is about the placement. I think we also talk about placements a lot, and this
Yeah.
is also one of the key strategies that always works for us. And we also kind of see that there could be different placements performing differently, but in most of the scenarios, I would say over 95% of the scenarios, top of search does very well.
Yes.
Nowadays we have also control over the rest of search with the feature released now. You could add the placement multiplier on the rest of search as well. So I think those placements is also one of the key aspects to consider when it comes to bidding. Like, for example, the base bid could be X, and then based on that you could be showing on different placements. We don't have any placement reduction option at the moment. We can only increase the placement. So what we generally do, we lower the base bids and then we increase those multipliers on the top of search or any other placement that's performing. That also seems to work very well. So are you kind of seeing something similar in placements, or there are some other observations you would like to share, Prem?
No, it's similar. I think whatever we are seeing, but we did experimented with rest of search, and for a few accounts it worked, but for few accounts it doesn't. So it depends on account and on category level also.
Which
So
again
rest
points
of search
to.
is like a little bit tricky at the moment. Sometimes when we increase by 10% for a few campaigns, we see the performance. It's doing better than the other page, but the ACOS and everything is really high.
Yeah, yeah, right. So
Yeah.
again, it ties back to the importance of analyzing the data, knowing for your particular account and campaign or product which placement does the best and optimizing accordingly. And then that becomes another important aspect to consider when it comes to considering the bid and how much to increase or decrease.
Yes, with placement also, we are already experimenting with a tool in house that whatever keywords you
Yeah.
will give to that tool, and it will go on amazon.com or amazon.co.uk, and it will take the screenshot, and it will give exactly where your ad is showing. So that will give a bonus point or a placement data correctly, so we know that for this keyword where we are trending, and we can increase or decrease bids, or change the bidding strategies based on those that tool.
Yeah,
That will be really helpful.
which is really good way to validate like how you are
Yes.
you are showing up on different placements and whether you are showing up for a different keyword or this keyword or that keyword. So yeah, I think it's really one of the helpful tools for us to see that.